The hospital bracelet's adhesive was already starting to itch when I woke up from surgery, and that should have been my first warning that this day was going to hell. The second warning was the empty chair beside my bed where my girlfriend Erin was supposed to be sitting, holding my hand and pretending to care that they just cut a tumor out of my intestines. Instead, I got a text at 3:47 p.m. "So sorry, baby. Work emergency came up. Boss needs me to fly out ASAP. We'll make it up to you when I get back. Love you." The timestamp showed she'd sent it while I was still under anesthesia. I'm Nick Harlan, 39 years old, and I run a small renovation business in Rockport, Maine. Population 18,000, which means everyone knows everyone else's business, and secrets have the shelf life of day-old fish. I've been with Erin for 3 years, living together for 2, and I thought I knew her pretty well. Turns out, I knew her about as well as I knew quantum physics. The nurse, a middle-aged woman named Janet with kind eyes and zero tolerance for bullshit, checked my vitals and tried to make small talk. "Your girlfriend had to work? That's rough timing." "Yeah, well, emergencies don't wait for convenient moments," I said, trying to sound understanding instead of bitter. The rubber seal from the anesthesia mask had left my mouth tasting like medical equipment and disappointment. That's when my phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. Erin had posted a story. I should have ignored it, should have focused on recovery, on the fact that the surgery had gone well and the tumor was benign. Should have been grateful that I wasn't dying of cancer at 39. Instead, I opened Instagram and watched my world implode in real time. The story showed Erin poolside at what looked like the Bellagio in Vegas, wearing a red bikini I'd never seen before and holding a drink that probably cost more than my daily medication. The caption read, "Single and ready to mingle. Harassment, Vegas baby. Freedom feels. Sakshik new chapter starting." The geolocation tag confirmed it. Las Vegas, Nevada. Posted 23 minutes ago, while I was waking up from surgery in a hospital bed 3,000 miles away. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the tagged male companion in the background of the shot, some guy named Gavin Pierce, all white teeth and expensive sunglasses, with his arm around what was supposed to be my girlfriend. I screenshot the story before she could realize her mistake and delete it. The timestamp glowed on my phone screen like evidence in a murder trial. 3:52 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 minutes after her work emergency text. Janet came back to check on me and noticed my expression. "Everything okay, honey?" "Just peachy," I said, my voice flat as roadkill. Turns out my girlfriend's definition of work emergency is a little more creative than mine. I spent the next hour in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles and listening to the digital chime of slot machines echoing from Erin's Instagram story. The sound kept replaying in my head like a broken record, mixing with the beep of my heart monitor and the flicker of the departure screen at McCarran Airport that I could see in the reflection of her sunglasses. Here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't hit you all at once like a punch to the gut. It seeps in slowly, like water through a cracked foundation, until suddenly you realize your whole world is rotting from the inside out. By the time Dr. Patel came to check on me, I'd made a decision. Not the kind of decision that involves violence or anything illegal. The kind of decision that involves patience, planning, and a very long memory. "Surgery went perfectly," Dr. Patel said, reviewing my chart. "You should be able to go home tomorrow morning. Is someone picking you up?" "Yeah," I said, already knowing it wouldn't be Erin. "Someone reliable." That someone turned out to be my foreman, Kenny, a 52-year-old ex-Marine who'd been working with me for 5 years and had never once let me down. He showed up at 8 a.m. sharp with coffee, donuts, and a carefully neutral expression that told me he'd already heard something. "How you feeling, boss?" he asked as he helped me into his truck. "Like I've been cut open and stitched back together," I said, in more ways than one. Kenny nodded and didn't push for details, which is why I trusted him. We drove home in comfortable silence, past the harbor where fishing boats were heading out for the day, past the diner where Erin and I used to have breakfast on Sundays, past all the landmarks of a life that had just become ancient history. My house is a 1920s colonial that I've been fixing up room by room for the past 8 years. It's got character, which is realtor speak for lots of problems that cost money to fix. But it's mine. Or it was supposed to be ours before Erin decided to go shopping for a replacement while I was unconscious. Kenny helped me get settled and left me with strict instructions to call if I needed anything. I thanked him and waited until his truck disappeared down the street before I started my investigation. See, here's what Erin didn't know. I'd been suspicious for weeks before the surgery. Little things at first, her phone always face down on the table, new clothes that didn't come home in shopping bags, work trips that seemed to involve a lot more spa treatments than actual work. 2 weeks before my surgery, I'd seen dating app notifications on her phone while she was in the shower. That's when I'd quietly changed my beneficiaries, my emergency contacts, and moved most of my money into accounts with only my name on them. Call it intuition, call it paranoia, call it the survival instincts of a man who'd learned not to trust foundations that looked solid from the outside. I pulled up our joint credit card statements on my laptop and started scrolling back through 18 months of business trips: Vegas, Miami, Cancun, Napa Valley, all luxury resorts, all charged to our joint account, all with different men based on the tagged photos I found on her social media, $67,000 in spa charges, resort fees, and restaurant bills. I guess I wasn't the only one who'd gotten a procedure, though hers seemed to involve a lot more champagne and a lot less anesthesia. My phone rang around noon. Erin's name flashed on the screen, and I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times before finally leaving a message. "Nick, baby, I'm so sorry I missed your surgery. This work thing came up so suddenly, and you know how crazy my boss gets. I'm flying back tonight, I promise. I love you so much, and I can't wait to take care of you. Call me back." The background noise in her voicemail was pure Vegas. Slot machines, crowd chatter, and what sounded like a poolside bar. Either her work conference had a very relaxed dress code, or Erin's definition of flying back tonight was as flexible as her definition of work emergency. I didn't call back. Instead, I called my 16-year-old niece, Riley, who's basically a digital native with a talent for finding things people don't want found. She came over with her laptop and a bag of energy drinks, ready to help her favorite uncle do some detective work. "So what exactly are we looking for?" Riley asked, settling into my kitchen table and cracking her knuckles like a concert pianist preparing for Carnegie Hall. "Evidence," I said. "The kind that stands up in court and ruins someone's day." Riley grinned. She'd never liked Erin, had always said there was something fake about her smile. Turns out teenagers are better judges of character than I gave them credit for. Within an hour, Riley had traced Erin's digital footprint back 6 months, the dating profiles on 3 different apps, all with photos I'd taken of her, but cropped to remove any sign of me. The fake work email domain she'd created to generate alibi documentation, the coordinated booking pattern that showed she'd been planning these trips months in advance. "Uncle Nick," Riley said, turning her laptop screen toward me, "your girlfriend isn't just cheating on you, she's running a whole operation." The screen showed a spreadsheet, Erin's own creation, apparently, with names, dates, locations, and what looked like expense tracking. Gavin Pierce was just the latest entry in a list that went back almost 2 years. "She's been documenting everything?" I asked, incredulous. "Looks like it. Maybe for tax purposes, or maybe she's just really organized about her side hustle." Riley clicked through more files. "Oh, and get this. She's been using your joint account to pay for background checks on these guys. Making sure they're worth her time, I guess." That's when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Hey man, this is Gavin. I'm really sorry about what happened. Erin told me you guys were already divorced and she was celebrating the finalization. I had no idea she was lying. She hit me up for some expensive gifts yesterday, and now I'm seeing posts about surgery. I feel like a complete ass. Sorry." I showed the message to Riley, who whistled low. "Wow, she told him you were divorced? And asked for gifts? This girl's got balls, I'll give her that." "Yeah, well, she's about to find out what happens when you lie to the wrong person," I said. The front door opened, and I heard Erin's voice calling out, "Nick, baby, I'm home. How are you feeling?" She walked into the kitchen wearing the same red bikini from her Instagram story under a hastily thrown-on cover-up, her hair still damp from what I assumed was a very recent pool session. Her tan was fresh, her nails were newly done, and she smelled like expensive sunscreen and guilt. "Oh," she said, noticing Riley. "Hi, sweetie. I didn't know you were here." "Just helping Uncle Nick with some computer stuff," Riley said innocently, closing her laptop. "You know, organizing files and things." Erin's smile flickered for just a second, long enough for me to see the panic behind her eyes, before snapping back into place. "That's so sweet of you. Nick, honey, you look tired. How was the surgery? I'm so sorry I couldn't be there." "It was educational," I said. "Learned a lot about cutting out things that look healthy on the outside but are actually toxic." "Well, I'm here now, and I'm going to take such good care of you. Let me make you some soup." She moved toward the stove with the kind of determined cheerfulness that screamed guilty conscience. I watched her bustle around my kitchen, opening cabinets she'd opened 1,000 times before, and marveled at how convincing she was. If I didn't know better, I'd almost believe she actually cared. "So, how was your work emergency?" I asked casually. "Oh, you know, just typical corporate drama. Boring meetings, terrible hotel food. Couldn't wait to get home to you." She didn't meet my eyes as she said it, focusing intently on opening a can of chicken noodle soup. Must have been some hotel, I said. The Bellagio's not usually known for terrible food. The can opener clattered to the floor. Erin turned around slowly, her face cycling through surprise, confusion, and calculation before settling on righteous indignation. What are you talking about? Your Instagram story. Posted while I was in surgery. Vegas, poolside, single and ready to mingle. Ring any bells? That's impossible. I was in Boston for work. Someone must have hacked my account. Really? They hacked your account, flew to Vegas, got your exact body measurements for that red bikini, and decided to pose with some random guy named Gavin Pierce? That's one hell of a dedicated hacker. Riley snorted with laughter, then tried to cover it with a cough. Erin shot her a look that could have stripped paint. I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, Erin said, her voice rising. But I was working. I have emails to prove it. From the fake domain you created? Yeah, we found those too, along with your spreadsheet tracking your business trips and the $67,000 you've spent on them using our joint credit card. The color drained from Erin's face. She looked from me to Riley and back again, and I could practically see her calculating how much trouble she was in. You went through my private files? Honey, when you use our shared cloud storage to organize your cheating schedule, it's not exactly private. I can explain everything. I'm sure you can. You're very creative, but I'm not really interested in explanations right now. I'm more interested in solutions. Erin straightened up, and I saw the mask slip completely. The sweet, caring girlfriend disappeared, replaced by someone cold and calculating. Fine. You want to know the truth? Yes, I've been seeing other people. You want to know why? Because you're boring, Nick. You're predictable and small town and going nowhere fast. These men, they have ambition. They have money. They can give me things you never could. Like what? Herpes? Because I'm pretty sure Gavin's got that covered. You're disgusting. I'm disgusting? You posted single and ready to mingle while I was having surgery. You told your boy Toy we were divorced. You've been stealing money from our joint account to fund your little adventures. But I'm disgusting? That money was as much mine as yours. Actually, no, it wasn't. See, funny thing about joint accounts. They require both parties to agree to major expenditures. 67 grand in unauthorized charges. That's called theft. Erin's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it instinctively. Her face went white. Problem? I asked. My boss wants to see me first thing Monday morning. Something about discrepancies in my expense reports. Huh, imagine that. Riley packed up her laptop and stood to leave. I should get going. Uncle Nick, call me if you need anything else. Organized. After she left, Erin and I stared at each other across my kitchen like gunfighters in an old western. The can of soup sat forgotten on the counter, and the smell of her expensive sunscreen was making me nauseous. What do you want? She asked finally. I want you to pack your things and get out of my house. This is my home too. No, it's not. It's my house, bought with my money, renovated with my hands. You just lived here. There's a difference. You can't just throw me out. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. Everything else is negotiable. She started to argue, then seemed to think better of it. Instead, she went upstairs to pack, and I listened to her moving around, opening drawers and slamming closet doors. 20 minutes later, she came back down with 2 suitcases and a face full of fury. This isn't over, she said. Yeah, it is. And Erin? Next time you decide to celebrate someone's surgery by posting bikini shots with your side piece, maybe turn off the geolocation tags. Just a tip? She left without another word, and I watched through the window as she loaded her car and drove away. The house felt different immediately, cleaner somehow, like I'd finally fixed a leak I didn't know was there. My phone rang a few minutes later. Kenny's name on the caller ID. Hey boss, how you holding up? Better than expected. Turns out surgery's not the only way to remove something toxic from your life. Kenny chuckled. I heard through the grapevine that Erin might be having some professional difficulties. Really? What kind of grapevine? The kind that includes my girlfriend, who works in accounting at Erin's company. Apparently there's going to be an investigation into some creative expense reporting. Might want to make sure your joint accounts are locked down. Already done, but thanks for the heads up. No problem. Oh, and Nick, that Instagram story of hers? It's been making the rounds. Half the town's seen it by now. Mrs. McCready from next door was asking me if you were okay. Mrs. McCready was 78 years old and had lived next door for 40 years. She knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. If she'd seen Erin's story, it would be all over Rockport by dinner time. Tell Mrs. McCready I'm doing just fine, I said. Better than fine, actually. Will do. Get some rest, boss. We'll handle the Jameson project while you recover. After Kenny hung up, I made myself a proper dinner, not canned soup, and settled in to watch the evening news. My phone kept buzzing with texts from friends and family who'd apparently seen Erin's Instagram story. Most were supportive, some were curious, and a few were downright gleeful. My sister texted, "Riley told me what happened. Want me to come over?" I replied, "I'm good. Your daughter's a hell of a detective, by the way." She gets it from her uncle. Love you. Around 9 p.m., my phone rang. Erin's name on the screen again. This time I answered. "What do you want?" "I need to come get some things I forgot." "Make a list. I'll box them up and leave them on the porch." "That's not how this works, Nick. I lived there for 2 years. I have belongings." "You also have a key to someone else's hotel room in Vegas, so I'd say your belongings situation is pretty fluid right now." "I'm coming over." "No, you're not. I changed the locks an hour ago." Silence on the other end of the line. "You can't do that." "I just did. Amazing what you can accomplish when you're not busy planning your next affair." "I want my grandmother's jewelry." "The jewelry that's been in my safe for the past year?" "The safe you don't have the combination to? That jewelry?" "You bastard." "Careful, Erin. My mother's a saint, unlike some people's girlfriends." She hung up. I poured myself a beer and toasted the empty house. "To single use only," I said aloud, and meant it. The next morning brought fresh hell in the form of Erin's best friend Casey, who showed up at my door at 8 a.m. looking like she'd been crying. Casey was 35, worked as a real estate agent, and had always been a little too interested in other people's drama for my taste. "Nick, I need to talk to you," she said. "If this is about Erin, I'm not interested. Please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on my couch and immediately started crying again. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I should have told you months ago, but Erin made me promise not to say anything. She said you guys were having problems, that you were probably going to break up anyway." "What exactly should you have told me?" "About the men, about the trips, about the plan." "What plan?" Casey wiped her eyes with a tissue. "She said if your cancer was serious, if you were going to die, she wanted to have some fun first. She called it her freedom celebration. I thought she was just talking, you know? I didn't think she'd actually do it." The room went very quiet. Outside, I could hear Mrs. McCready watering her garden and humming off-key. Inside, I could hear my own heartbeat and the sound of whatever remained of my faith in human decency dying a slow death. She was planning to celebrate my death? Not celebrate exactly. She said life was short, and she didn't want to waste it being sad. She said you'd understand if you really loved her. And you believed that? I don't know what I believed. Erin can be very convincing when she wants something. Yeah, I've noticed. Casey looked around my living room like she was seeing it for the first time. She used to complain about this house, you know. Said it was too small, too old, too far from the city. She had plans to sell it after I died. Yeah. I walked Casey to the door and thanked her for finally telling me the truth. She apologized again and left, and I stood in my driveway for a long time, breathing in the salt air and trying to process what I'd just learned. Erin hadn't just cheated on me. She'd been planning for my death, setting up her new life while I was fighting for my old one. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I almost had to admire the scope of it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Lindsay from Erin's office. Can you call me? It's important." Lindsay turned out to be one of Erin's coworkers, and when I called her back, she sounded nervous. "I probably shouldn't be calling you," she said, "but I thought you should know. Erin's been fired." "For the expense fraud?" "That's part of it. But there's more. She was also having an affair with our department head, Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer's married, and when her wife found out, she threatened to sue the company for creating a hostile work environment. HR decided Erin was a liability. Jesus, how many people was she sleeping with?" "I honestly don't know, but Nick, she's been telling people at work that you were abusive, that she was afraid to leave you because you threatened her. I just thought you should be prepared in case she tries to make trouble." Thanks for the warning. For what it's worth, nobody believed her. We all saw how she talked about you when she thought you weren't around. She used to joke about trading up. After Lindsay hung up, I sat in my kitchen and tried to wrap my head around the scope of Erin's deception. It wasn't just infidelity. It was a complete alternate reality where I was the villain and she was the victim, where my cancer was an inconvenience and my death was an opportunity. That afternoon, I drove to the Latchstring, Rockport's only decent bar, to have a beer and think. The place was mostly empty except for a few regulars and the bartender, Tom, who'd known me since high school. "Heard you had some excitement recently," Tom said, sliding a beer across the bar. "News travels fast in a small town. Especially when it involves Instagram stories posted from Vegas while your boyfriend's having surgery. That's some cold-blooded shit right there." "Yeah, well, I'm learning that people aren't always who you think they are." Tom nodded and moved down the bar to serve another customer. I was halfway through my beer when Detective Lana Brooks walked in. Lana was 42, divorced, and had been with the Rockport PD for 15 years. We'd gone to high school together but weren't friends exactly. More like friendly acquaintances who nodded at each other in the grocery store. She sat down 2 stools away and ordered a coffee. "Afternoon, Nick. How you feeling?" "Like I've been cut open and stitched back together." "I heard about your girlfriend's Vegas adventure. Must have been quite a shock." "You could say that." Lana stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "You know, it's funny. We got a call this morning from someone claiming their ex-boyfriend was threatening them, wanted to file a restraining order." "Really? What kind of threats?" "Oh, the usual. Physical violence, stalking, financial abuse. The kind of thing we take very seriously." "I'm sure you do." "Of course, when we asked for evidence, recordings, witnesses, medical reports, there wasn't any. Just accusations. Makes our job difficult when people file false reports." "I imagine it does." Lana finished her coffee and stood to leave. "Take care of yourself, Nick. And if anyone gives you trouble, you know where to find me." After she left, Tom came back over. "Sounds like someone's trying to cause problems for you." "Sounds like someone's going to be disappointed." That evening, I got a call from Gavin Pierce. He sounded drunk and miserable. "I just wanted to apologize again," he said. "I had no idea she was lying about being divorced. I feel like a complete piece of shit." "You should." "I know. Look, I'm married too, okay? My wife found out about Vegas, and now she's filing for divorce. I lost my job today because my company has a morality clause. Erin's destroyed my life. Join the club? We meet for drinks and self-pity every Tuesday." "This isn't funny, man. She's ruined everything." "Gavin, let me give you some advice. The next time a woman tells you she's celebrating her divorce finalization by posting single and ready to mingle while her ex is having surgery, maybe ask a few more questions before you book the penthouse suite." I know. I'm an idiot." "Yeah, you are. But at least you're an honest idiot. That puts you ahead of Erin in my book." Gavin sniffled into the phone. "She asked me to lie for her, to tell people we met after her divorce was final. I told her to go to hell. Good for you. I'm going back to my wife. I'm going to beg her to forgive me and try to put my life back together. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to finish recovering from surgery, get back to work, and move on with my life." "That's it? You're not going to make her pay?" "Gavin, Erin's unemployed, homeless, and facing potential fraud charges. Her family won't talk to her, her friends are abandoning her, and her reputation's shot. What exactly do you think I need to do to her that she hasn't already done to herself?" "I guess you're right. I usually am. Take care, Gavin. And next time, keep it in your pants." The next few days passed quietly. I rested, caught up on paperwork, and fielded calls from friends and family who'd heard about my situation. Most were supportive, some were curious, and a few seemed disappointed that there wasn't more drama to report. My sister came by with groceries and gossip. "Mrs. McCready says Erin's been driving by the house at night," she said. "I know. I've seen her." "Aren't you worried?" "About what? She's not dangerous, just desperate. There's a difference." "Still, maybe you should call the police." "And tell them what? That my ex-girlfriend is driving on a public street? They'd laugh me out of the station." "I guess you're right. Riley says you're handling this better than she expected." "What did she expect?" "Drama, revenge, maybe a little violence." "Sorry to disappoint her." My sister laughed. "Oh, she's not disappointed. She's impressed. She says you're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers." "I'm not playing anything. I'm just trying to get on with my life." "Uh-huh. And I'm sure it's just a coincidence that Erin's whole world fell apart right after she screwed you over." Sometimes karma doesn't need any help. And sometimes it needs a little push from someone who knows where all the bodies are buried. That Saturday, Rockport held its annual Harbor Festival, a tourist-friendly celebration with food trucks, craft booths, and live music on the boardwalk. I wasn't planning to go. Crowds weren't really my thing even before surgery. But Kenny convinced me it would be good to get out of the house. "You can't hide forever," he said. "Besides, half the town's been asking about you. Might as well show your face and let people see you're okay. So I went, and for the first hour, it was actually pleasant. The weather was perfect, the food was good, and people were genuinely glad to see me. I got a lot of "how are you feeling" questions and a few "heard about your girlfriend" comments, but nothing too invasive. That changed when Erin showed up. She looked terrible, pale, thin, with dark circles under her eyes and clothes that looked like she'd been sleeping in them. She was with Casey, who seemed to be trying to talk her out of something. "Nick," Erin called out, pushing through the crowd toward me. "We need to talk." "No, we don't," I said, not moving from my spot near the lobster roll truck. "You can't just destroy my life and walk away." People were starting to stare. Kenny appeared at my elbow, ready to intervene if necessary. "I didn't destroy your life, Erin. You did that all by yourself. You turned everyone against me. You ruined my career, my relationships, everything. I didn't turn anyone against you. I just stopped covering for you. You manipulated the situation. You set me up." "I set you up? How exactly did I set you up? Did I force you to cheat? Did I make you steal money from our joint account? Did I put a gun to your head and make you post 'single and ready to mingle' while I was having surgery?" The crowd around us had grown larger, and I could see phones coming out to record the confrontation. Erin seemed to realize she was making a scene, but she was too far gone to stop. "You know what you did," she said, her voice rising. "You planned this whole thing. You wanted me to look bad." "Honey, I didn't need to plan anything. You looked bad all on your own. I loved you." "No, you didn't. You loved my house, my bank account, and the convenience of having someone to fall back on while you shopped for an upgrade. But you never loved me." Erin started crying, the ugly kind of crying that comes from rage and frustration rather than sadness. Casey tried to pull her away, but she shook her off. "This isn't over," she said, pointing at me with a shaking finger. "I'll make you pay for this." "With what?" "You're unemployed, remember?" That's when she lunged at me. Not a serious attack, more like a desperate grab, but Kenny stepped between us and caught her wrists. "That's enough," he said firmly. "You need to leave. Don't touch me. He's abusing me. Someone call the police." As if summoned, Detective Brooks appeared through the crowd. She took in the scene, Erin disheveled and crying, me standing calmly with Kenny, the crowd of onlookers with their phones out, and sighed. "What's the problem here?" she asked. "This man is harassing me," Erin said. "He's been stalking me, threatening me, ruining my life." Brooks looked at me. "Nick, you want to tell me your side?" "I came to the festival to get a lobster roll and listen to some music. She approached me and started making accusations. I never touched her, never threatened her, never even raised my voice." "He's lying." Brooks turned to the crowd. "Did anyone see what happened?" A dozen voices spoke up, all telling the same story. Erin had approached me, started the confrontation, and made the first physical move. Nobody had seen me do anything threatening or inappropriate. "Ma'am," Brooks said to Erin, "I'm going to need you to calm down and step away from Mr. Harlan. If you have complaints about his behavior, you can file them through proper channels, but right now, you're causing a public disturbance. He destroyed my life. That's between you and him. But if you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have to arrest you for disorderly conduct." Casey finally managed to pull Erin away, apologizing to everyone as they left. The crowd dispersed, and Brooks lingered for a moment. "You okay?" she asked. "Fine. Thanks for handling that." "Just doing my job. But Nick, be careful. She's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. I'll keep that in mind." Brooks left, and Kenny and I finished our walk around the festival. People kept coming up to offer support or just to chat, and by the end of the day, I felt more connected to my community than I had in years. "Not a bad day," Kenny said as we walked back to his truck. "Not bad at all." "You know what the best part was?" "What's that?" "Half the town got to see exactly what kind of person Erin really is, and the other half will hear about it by tomorrow." "That wasn't intentional." "Maybe not. But it worked out pretty well, didn't it?" That night, I got a call from my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Morse, who'd handled the purchase of my house and my business incorporation. She'd heard about the festival incident and wanted to discuss my options. "Erin's been making some serious accusations," Patricia said. "Stalking, harassment, financial abuse. None of it's likely to stick given the evidence, but she could still cause problems for you." "What kind of problems?" "Lawsuits, mostly. Even frivolous ones cost money to defend. And there's always the possibility she'll escalate to criminal charges." "Based on what evidence?" "That's the thing about desperate people. They're not always rational about evidence. She might try to manufacture some." "So what do you recommend?" "Document everything. Keep records of all your interactions with her. Get witness statements from today's incident, and consider filing for a restraining order yourself. I don't want to escalate things. Nick, she's already escalated things. You're just protecting yourself. I thanked Patricia and hung up, then spent the evening writing down everything I could remember about my relationship with Erin, the discovery of her affairs, and the confrontation at the festival. It was depressing work, but necessary. The next morning brought another surprise. A knock on my door from Jennifer Walsh, Erin's former boss and lover. Jennifer was 45, impeccably dressed, and looked like she hadn't slept in days. Mr. Harlan, I'm Jennifer Walsh. I think we need to talk. I invited her in and made coffee while she composed herself. I want to apologize, she said finally. For my part, in what happened to you, I had no idea Erin was in a relationship when we started seeing each other. She told me she was single. Seems to be a pattern with her. I'm married, Mr. Harlan, 22 years, 2 kids in college. Erin's destroyed my family. I'm sorry to hear that. My wife found out about the affair and filed for divorce. She's asking for everything, the house, the business, custody of our youngest, and she's threatening to sue my company for harassment. That's rough. Erin's been calling me, demanding money. She says if I don't help her, she'll tell my wife that I initiated the relationship, that I coerced her into it. And did you? No, it was completely consensual. But it doesn't matter what the truth is if she's convincing enough. Jennifer pulled out her phone and showed me a series of text messages from Erin. They were ugly, demanding, threatening, manipulative, classic blackmail disguised as desperate pleas for help. What do you want from me? I asked. I want to know if she's done this before, if there are other people she's manipulated or threatened. I can't speak to her past relationships, but I can tell you she's got a talent for making herself the victim no matter what the situation is. Will you testify if it comes to that? About her character, her patterns of behavior? If it's legally necessary, yes. Jennifer left me her contact information and thanked me for listening. After she was gone, I realized that Erin's web of lies and manipulation was even larger than I'd thought. She wasn't just a cheater, she was a predator, using people's emotions and desires against them. That afternoon, I got another unexpected visitor, Gavin Pierce. He looked even worse than he had sounded on the phone, unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing clothes that looked like he'd been living in them. I'm sorry to bother you, he said, but I didn't know where else to go. What's wrong? Erin's been calling me, texting me. She wants me to lie for her, to say that you threatened me, that you made me apologize to you. And? I told her no, so she sent my wife screenshots of our text conversations, but she edited them to make it look like I was the one pursuing her, like I was obsessed with her. Jesus. My wife won't even talk to me now. She thinks I'm some kind of stalker, and Erin keeps calling, saying she'll make it right if I just do this one favor for her. Don't do it, Gavin. I know I shouldn't, but I'm desperate, man. I've lost everything. And you think lying for Erin will get it back? She's the reason you lost it in the first place? I know, but nothing. She's manipulating you the same way she manipulated me, the same way she manipulated Jennifer Walsh and probably a dozen other people. Don't let her do it. Gavin sat in my living room and cried like a child. It was pathetic and heartbreaking and infuriating all at once. Here was a grown man, reduced to begging for help from the husband of the woman who'd destroyed his life. What should I do? He asked. Tell your wife the truth, all of it. Show her the original, unedited messages. Explain how Erin lied to you about being divorced. And then get a lawyer and make sure Erin can't contact you anymore. You think my wife will believe me? I don't know, but I know she'll never believe you if you start lying for Erin. Gavin left with a little more backbone than he'd arrived with, and I hoped he'd find the courage to do the right thing. But I wasn't optimistic. Desperate people make desperate choices, and Gavin was about as desperate as they come. That evening, I called Riley and asked her to do some more digital detective work. What are we looking for this time? She asked. Everything. I want to know everyone Erin's been in contact with, everyone she's threatened or manipulated, everyone who might have information about her activities. That's a pretty broad search. I know, but I have a feeling we're going to need all the ammunition we can get. Riley worked her magic over the next few days, and what she found was staggering. Erin had been running variations of the same scam for years, targeting married men, convincing them she was single or divorced, extracting gifts and money, then using their guilt and fear to manipulate them further. There was Marcus, a doctor from Portland who'd paid for her emergency medical bills. There was David, a businessman from Boston who'd bought her a car to help her escape an abusive relationship. There was Thomas, a lawyer from New York who'd given her money for legal fees to divorce her violent husband. Uncle Nick, Riley said, showing me her laptop screen. Your ex-girlfriend isn't just a cheater, she's a con artist. How many victims do you think there are? Based on what I can find? At least a dozen over the past 3 years, maybe more. And they all believed her stories? Hook, line, and sinker. She's got a real talent for finding lonely married guys with money and guilty consciences. I stared at the evidence Riley had compiled and felt a mixture of disgust and grudging admiration. Erin was terrible, but she was also incredibly good at being terrible. It took skill to manipulate that many people for that long without getting caught. What do we do with this information? Riley asked. We document it, and we wait. Wait for what? For Erin to make her next move, because she will. People like her always do. I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, Detective Brooks called with news that Erin had filed a formal complaint against me, alleging stalking, harassment, and financial abuse. I have to ask you some questions, Brooks said. It's just procedure. Of course. We met at the police station, and Brooks walked me through Erin's allegations. According to her statement, I had been controlling and abusive throughout our relationship, had threatened her when she tried to leave, and was now stalking her and turning people against her. She's provided some evidence, Brooks said, sliding a folder across the table. Text messages, emails, witness statements. I looked through the materials and immediately recognized Erin's handiwork. The text messages were real, but taken out of context and edited to remove her responses. The emails were fabricated using the same fake domain she'd used for her work alibis. The witness statements were from people I'd never met, claiming to have seen me following her or threatening her. This is all fake, I said. Can you prove that? Most of it, yes. I called Riley, who came to the station with her laptop and a folder of evidence. Within an hour, she'd demonstrated that the emails were fake, the text messages were edited, and the witness statements contained impossible details. Dates when I was in the hospital, locations I'd never been to, conversations that couldn't have happened. Well, Brooks said, closing the folder, that's pretty conclusive. I'll have to tell Ms. Harlan that her complaint lacks merit. What happens now? Now? Nothing, unless she tries to file false charges again. But Nick, I'd recommend you get a restraining order. She's escalating, and that usually doesn't end well. I took Brooks' advice and filed for a restraining order that afternoon. Patricia handled the paperwork, and within a week, Erin was legally prohibited from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my home or business. The restraining order seemed to quiet things down for a while. I didn't see Erin driving by my house anymore, didn't get any more angry phone calls or text messages. I started to think maybe she'd finally gotten the message and moved on. I should have known better. The call came on a Tuesday evening, Casey sounding panicked and out of breath. Nick, you need to know. Erin's planning something. She's been drinking all day and talking crazy. She says she's going to make you pay, that she's going to destroy your life the way you destroyed hers. What kind of something? I don't know exactly, but she's got a gun, Nick. Her grandfather's old hunting rifle. She says she's not going to let you get away with what you did to her. I hung up and immediately called Detective Brooks, who took the threat seriously enough to send a patrol car to my house and put out a bolo for Erin's car. You should stay somewhere else tonight, Brooks advised, just until we can locate her and assess the situation. I called Kenny, who came over with his own rifle and a grim expression. Screw that, he said. This is your house. If she wants to make trouble, she can deal with the consequences. We spent the night taking turns on watch, but Erin never showed up. The next morning, Brooks called to let me know they'd found her passed out drunk in her car in the parking lot of a motel 20 miles away. The rifle was in the back seat, unloaded. We arrested her for violating the restraining order and making terroristic threats, Brooks said. She'll be in jail for at least 72 hours, probably longer. Good. Nick, I have to ask, do you want to press charges? Absolutely. Erin was charged with multiple crimes and held on a $50,000 bail that nobody was willing to post. Her family had cut her off completely, her friends were done with her drama, and her former lovers were too busy dealing with their own problems to help. She spent 2 weeks in jail before finally accepting a plea deal that included probation, mandatory counseling, and a permanent restraining order. She was also required to pay restitution for the money she'd stolen from our joint account and the legal fees I'd incurred defending myself against her false accusations. The day she was released, Erin left Rockport. Casey told me she'd moved to Florida, supposedly to stay with a cousin. I didn't ask for details and didn't care where she went, as long as it was far away from me. 6 months later, I was fully recovered from my surgery and back to work full-time. My business was doing well, my health was good, and my life was peaceful in a way it hadn't been for years. I was having a beer at the Latch String one Friday evening when Tom the bartender mentioned he'd heard from someone who'd heard from someone else that Erin had been arrested in Tampa for running a romance scam on elderly men. Apparently, she convinced some retired widower to give her $20,000 for a fake medical emergency, Tom said. Guy figured out he was being scammed and called the cops. Huh, I said, taking a sip of my beer. Imagine that. Seems like she didn't learn her lesson. Some people never do. I finished my drink and walked home through the quiet streets of Rockport, past the harbor where fishing boats bobbed in the moonlight, past the house where Mrs. McCready was probably watching the late news and collecting gossip for tomorrow's rounds. My house was dark and peaceful, exactly the way I liked it. I sat on my front porch for a while, listening to the sound of waves against the shore and thinking about how much my life had changed in the past year. I'd survived cancer, discovered the woman I loved was a fraud, lost friends, gained others, and learned more about human nature than I'd ever wanted to know. It had been painful and expensive and exhausting. It had also been worth it. Because now I knew the truth about Erin, about myself, and about what I was willing to tolerate in my life. I knew the difference between being alone and being lonely, between love and manipulation, between forgiveness and stupidity. Most importantly, I knew that some people are meant to be in your life forever, and others are meant to be lessons. Erin had been a lesson. An expensive, painful, complicated lesson, but a lesson nonetheless. I went inside, locked the door, and went to bed in my own house, in my own bed, surrounded by my own things and my own peace of mind. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my bedroom window and the sound of Mrs. McCready humming in her garden. I made coffee, read the newspaper, and planned my day. It was going to be a good day. They all were now. I never saw Erin again, never heard from her directly, and never wanted to. She'd served her purpose in my life, teaching me what I didn't want, showing me what real betrayal looked like, and proving that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well without the people who tried to destroy you. 6 months after that, I met Sarah, a widow who ran a bookstore in town. She was kind, honest, and had no interest in Vegas or Instagram or anyone else's money. We took things slow, built trust carefully, and never made promises we couldn't keep. A year later, we got married in a small ceremony at the harbor, with Kenny as my best man and Riley as Sarah's maid of honor. Mrs. McCready cried happy tears and told everyone who would listen that she'd known from the beginning that Erin was no good and Sarah was perfect for me. As for Erin, I heard through the grapevine that she was serving a 2-year sentence in a Florida prison for fraud. Casey told me she'd written letters asking for money for commissary and phone calls, but nobody was responding. I wasn't surprised. People like Erin burn through relationships like kindling, always looking for the next person to manipulate, the next opportunity to exploit. Eventually, they run out of victims and have to face the consequences of their choices. I raised my glass at my wedding reception and made a toast. To Sarah, who proves that some people are worth waiting for, and to second chances, which are only valuable if you learn from your first mistakes. The crowd cheered, Sarah kissed me, and Mrs. McCready dabbed her eyes with a tissue. It was, without question, the best day of my life. And somewhere in a Florida prison, Erin was probably planning her next scam, her next victim, her next attempt to avoid taking responsibility for the mess she'd made of her life. But that was her problem now, not mine. I was done being her victim, done being her target, done being anything to her at all. I was finally, completely, terminally single. Single from her